Assalamu alaikum, who? How are you? Peaceful possibilities and events upon you. How are you? If you remember, I used to have a style with a computer on the shelf behind me looking to give a view on Qibla from behind in the Islamic tradition to show we worship the one God and we don't worship the face. Uh, and we also try to not worship any particular logos. That's why I wear this in the back. You may remember in the news recently that two U.S. servicemen in a secure bunker were shot in the back of the heads. So it naturally occurred to me that there might be a correlation between the two hats that I've been wearing and the brave men and women seeking to serve our country. I apologize for any lack on my part of being more timely so that things like that would not happen, because instead of frustration, there might be love between one another. Uh, the only reason I can think of is that there is so much to diagnose and heal that it's almost like running in quicksand at times. And here's an example of the kind of thing that I've been working on that may have kept me from getting books published and being on the road to generate the kind of love that would avoid the possible correlations just mentioned. In the Federal District Court for the District of Columbia, William Long Hale, a.k.a. Haji Mohammed Abu Bakr Ali Omar, plaintiff, versus John Andrew Boehner, Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, and Joseph Robinette Biden, President of the United States Senate, defendants. Summary: license, registration, and insurance. The case of the negligent sovereign who failed to apply the Department of Motor Vehicles model DMV at the international level to better promote domestic tranquility and reduce the cost of providing for the common defense by offering to post insurance and to accept insurance posted by other sovereigns to offset the risk of sovereigns owning and operating potentially lethal technology instead of relying solely on the invasion of privacy and the threat of military retaliation as the only means to check and balance the right of other sovereigns to own and operate potentially lethal technology. Complaint: what did you want to do that who would not let you do? I wanted to stand with my international American brothers in a more perfect union, instead of being divided from them by a double standard applied by the defendants to the possession and use of uranium by Iran on one hand and other nations on the other hand. And further, I wanted to stand with my international American brothers under a more consistent, unbiased establishment of justice, instead of being separated from their goodwill by my, their, and our country failing to apply the well-known and generally accepted requirement of insurance being carried to mitigate risks arising from two-edged swords in general and the peaceful and defensive use only of uranium in particular. And further, I wanted to stand with my international American brothers under greater domestic tranquility, instead of in an atmosphere of domestic invasion of privacy arising out of the international disrespect for my country created by the double standard regarding peaceful and defensive use only of uranium applied by the defendants. And further, I wanted to stand with my international American brothers under a more secure common defense, where the financial penalty for harm caused would be a significant incentive to promote peaceful and defensive use only of uranium, instead of the uninsured situation we are now in. And further, I wanted to stand with my international American brothers under a promotion of the general welfare due to the peace dividend arising from increased trade and commerce due to greater confidence in financial planning buttressed by self-insurance of peaceful and defensive use only of uranium, instead of the current atmosphere of doubt and mistrust and men-at-arms, with the threat of death and destruction being the only incentive to engage in peaceful and defensive use only of uranium. And further, I wanted to stand with my international American brothers side by side, as equal as the teeth on a comb, confident I and they and we had better secured the blessings of liberty upon ourselves and our posterity. But the defendants would not let me. Grounds. Why do you think you have the right to do what you want to do? I think I have the right to do what I want to do because what I want to do are the reasons set forth in the preamble for adopting and ordaining the Constitution of the United States of America. Requested remedy. What do you want who to do so you can do what who won't let you do? I want the court to order an exception to the United States sanctions against Iran in regards to the trust fund for peaceful and defensive use only of uranium in Exhibit A. And further, I want the court to order the defendants in their respective chambers to introduce the legislation in Exhibit B towards the goal of reinforcing the requested court order and building consensus for peaceful and defensive use only of uranium. Thunk. The date and time, question mark, 2012-02-25, 1250 at 165 degrees. Can I find Exhibit A or Exhibit B in the time remaining? No. Amendment to the Constitution of Egypt, Draft 4. Here's another reason it's difficult to get things done on time. Maybe if I had a staff, if elected, who will respectfully serve, God willing, a sufficient majority vote in favor of. Here's amendment number something to the Constitution of Egypt, stand alone or stand with the exile of Hosni Mubarak. Whereas to this day there remains with us the division of the family of Abraham, and whereas this division of our family arose from the exile of Hagar to stand alone in the desert by the order of Sarah, and whereas our ability to adopt or conceive, rear, educate, endow, and emancipate continues to be determined by the logic of stand alone or stand with, whose choice to what degree, why, and whereas, like the Pharaoh, Hosni Mubarak, and his collaborators made Egyptians and all who surround us too dependent upon standing with him and his collaborators, and whereas the people of Tahrir Square, along with our siblings in Tunisia, Libya, Syria, Côte d'Ivoire, Bahrain, Yemen, Morocco, and beyond have demonstrated a strong determination to endow and emancipate all individuals and groups with both inseparable duties and voluntary choices regarding access to walk and bar. And whereas access to walk and bar enables you to decide according to your own reasoning and evidence and efforts to reach consensus regarding stand alone or stand with, whose choice to what degree, why. Therefore be the Constitution of Egypt hereby amended to direct the Parliament and military command of Egypt to oversee the reduction of rank of Hosni Mubarak to private, where he and who else were last sure he was doing things right, and further amend to direct his exile to stand alone, along with 2 doctors and a security detail, to where every direction is Qibla. So no matter in what direction Hosni Mubarak looks, he might constantly be reminded the true source of our dependency and our protection supersedes and ultimately determines who controls guns or money, and is found in your personal comprehension of the loving plan of self-repair from the one and only one 100% independence, who or why can stand alone or stand with any, the one God who creates and sustains all worlds, and who is the only one permitted to live or go inside the seamless Ramadan, inside the oldest treasure house, the oldest scientific laboratory, the oldest house of God, where all Qibla meet and curve into the whirlpool of Twaf, where the shards and eversions of Kaaba wall, which form whose light let be, reunify with the seamless Ramadan side facing inwards, and the seamed Eid side facing outwards, like a centrifuge around the seamless Ramadan, inside the Kaaba, where only the 100% independence is permitted to live or go. This Ramadan Eid bond of the Kaaba walls, able to fragment and turn inside out, the material from which is constructed the clay of four-dimensional cross, of all north, south, east, west, down, up, toward, hello, and away, goodbye. Remember, Jesus was a carpenter. The cross of the compass and the clock are made from the oldest house of God, and further amended to direct a full copy of the archives and opinion of Judge Ahmed Rifat, head of the Cairo Criminal Court, to be preserved on shipboard and in any land-based science center or mosque or ecumenical welcoming center resulting from this amendment to the Egyptian Constitution. Reuniting the family of Abraham, again using the tool of exile to explain the choice of stand alone or stand with. Whose choice, to what degree, why? Aligning the highest chain of command to understand who ultimately has that choice. So we didn't find the applicable amendment or the other exhibit B, but this might give you an idea of why good things take time. If we all hang together, we won't hang separately. I cannot tell a lie, said George Washington. My appeal to you is to work together so that we can bring these things to come to pass. May I get my books published so that you can read them and evaluate them and amend them and move forward the logic of stand alone or stand with. Whose choice, to what degree, why? It's kind of why I support Ron Paul, a strict constitutionalist, very concerned about your right to determine stand alone or stand with.